in finding a house, one of the things we looked for was a house that would provide an environment where the whole community would be able to grow and be together and being with together. And that also so much of what happens in the house happens in the context of that house community and then the greater community. We were fortunate in that we kind of had a turnkey operation. We were able to lease a bed and breakfast. So it came fully furnished, including lovely little robes and slippers in each of the rooms. So the first, they did not last forever, of course, but the first crew of folks were welcomed into a bed and breakfast environment with, and it was basically a duplex, so it had two sides, but we broke through the door. So we had two kitchens, basically two sort of a living room and a sitting room. And one of the kitchens was most significant activity happened in the kitchen, as it does so often in so many homes around cooking, eating, and having conversation. But I would say we looked at several different things. So one would be the actual house environment itself, access. So access to transportation, school near university, or ability to get to university, or high school type programs, because we had young people, some of whom were trying to get their high school equivalent, what we call in the US high school equivalency diploma. We had people living there who had the ability to go to classes. They were able to go to work if they had a job. I mean, might be days when they weren't, but they didn't lose their job because they were locked up in an institution and couldn't get out. One of my mentors, Alma Men, really walked around the house with me to talk about safety, because sometimes people will have a behavior or that you might not expect them to do. And so she would walk around and say, you know, that lamp is fairly dangerous. Let's think about, is there another way to place the lamp, or so that somebody wouldn't either knock it over or use it, and that sort of thing. So safety also within the house. And one of the things we looked at was entrances and exits. So because it was a duplex, there were several entrances and exits, and there would be times when people would leave the house, because it's voluntary, you can come and go as you please, but we wanted to be aware, because sometimes people were in a state that maybe they might not be so safe outside. So we would want to be aware that they left the house so that either someone could go with them if they would like that, but at least pay attention to who was there and who wasn't there. So we did have several entrances and exits, but we had to pay attention to how we would know people were coming and going. So I would say, you know, safety, access, and then the big thing was community. Was the community welcoming? Was it a community that would be conducive to people who might be in an altered state, maybe speaking in a way that another person might not understand, and unfortunately, our community was not happy that the bread and breakfast turned into a Soteria house, and we were advised that we should really do a lot of community relations type of things. So we spent several Saturdays knocking on doors, introducing ourselves, explaining what we were doing. In retrospect, I don't know that helped us, but in fact, it may have hurt us, because I don't know that they would have known who we were if we didn't tell them. But I believe in transparency, but I will say it caused us some serious issues. I remember going to a community meeting, and people twist what you're doing. So they're like, oh, this is a house for sex offenders. And it's like, no, that's not true. That's not what this house is for. And by the way, let me show you the map of where all the sex offenders are in this neighborhood, which was like several in every block. So, but that's not what this house is. So, so there was a lot of that. in the end, we first decided not to go there, and then we came back around because the house was really so perfect for this project for Soteria House. So in the end, we did move there, and in the long run, our residents made friends with the people in the neighborhood. You know, they knew each other, they'd wave at each other, they, they chit chat with each other. So in the end, it all worked out, as life often does. But there were some people who continued to not be happy with us, and they all had my phone number. I would get calls every once in a while.